Hi, welcome to the channel. I'm Lauro Miller and I make videos about programming. Today's video is the second one in the mini-series about strings, and today we're gonna cover a few operations we can perform on them. We'll go through several methods to find, extract, and transform strings. And just a quick reminder before we jump right into the discussion, in the description of this video you can find a link to the online exercises where you can practice everything we discuss here. Awesome, so let's switch to Notion and let's start the discussion. Let's talk about several string operations that are available to us. It doesn't mean that we have to use all of them always, but it's good to know that they exist. So we start by talking about how to find substrings within string, also how to extract substrings, how to combine strings, and how to transform strings. We will talk in a separate part. So in the next part, we're going to talk about how we can use the match method. This involves a deeper discussion on regular expressions. So I have opted to make it in a separate part so that we don't get too confused and this one doesn't go for too long, and we can actually dedicate enough attention and enough time for regular expressions. I'm not going to cover everything about regular expressions, just how JavaScript handles it through the match method. New file is going to be called finding.js. There are a few methods that I want to discuss. I'll just list them here so that I make sure I talk about all of them. The first one is starts with. The second one is, well, guess what? Ends with. Then we also have the index of. We talked about this when we talked about the basics of strings, and we also have the includes method. So let's talk about starts with, and I'm gonna use just a simple, or let's call it sample str. This is a sample string for demonstration purposes, right? So let's start by exploring the starts with. So console.log, and let's say sample.str starts with, and then we're gonna say the substring here that we want to compare. And if I pass t, for example, this is going to output true. At the console, let's run this with node finding.js, and of course that's true. I can also pass a longer substring here. As long as it matches at the beginning, it's no problem. I'll save this, run it again, it's also true. If I mistype something, let's say I pass a double space in the end and then I save this again, then of course it's going to be false because the string does not have a double space here, it's a single space. I can also start looking for the starts with in a later position. So let's say that we're going to say sample here, and let's count. It's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So we're going to start at index 10, and let's see how this is going to print on the screen. And it prints actually true, right? So the second parameter here, or the second argument that you can pass to the function, which is not mandatory, you can see that it works without, and if I save this and I run, I get a false. But if I pass 10 here as the second parameter, then this is going to inform where we are actually going to start looking. This is the index, is not the position. I mean, index and position, they are used sometimes interchangeably. Position, it tends to be, or I tend to think about it when that it starts counting at 1, but index starts counting at 0, right? So we have 4, 5, then 7, 8, 9, 10. So here we are going to start counting at index 10, and then we can ensure that we have that the string starts with sample, because I am considering only this substring. Okay, now if I have the other one that is the ends with, right? So console.log sample str.ends with, and here I can also pass purposes, right? Now remember that I am counting, let's say, quote unquote, backwards, which means that if I just pass PUR, so per, then this is going to be false, right? Because the string does not end with PUR. The last word of the string starts with PUR, but I need to actually consider the characters at the end here. So if I save this now, then this should be true. And if I write purposes, then this should also be true. I can pass a second argument here, which is going to define where we are going to stop, right? So if the method with starts with said where we were going to start with the second argument, this one we're going to say where we're going to stop. So let's say we stop at index 10 again. And I save this, and this is going to then be false, right? Because now I'm considering just this little part of the, or actually this little part here of the string. If I were to pass a space, then I think this would be true. Exactly, then this would be true. Because 10 is not inclusive, right? So we are stopping right after the space here. So I could also say A and something like this, and this will also be true. So this is how the ends with work. We already know how the index of operator works. So here I can just say sample str.index of. And one thing I didn't mention is that index of returns only the first index. You can see that we have a few A's here. We have A here, we have another A in sample, we have another A in demonstration. But if I pass index of A and I save this, then this is going to return only the first A, which is in, I think, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? So it's in index 8. Once I print this, I get 8 here on the screen. If I pass a character that is not there, then I get -1. If I pass a string, even though A is here, then AS is not. So if I run this, I also get -1, right? Now the includes, it's actually quite similar to the index of, and the idea of includes is that it does not return the index, it just returns a boolean, right? So it returns a boolean if the string that we are using here includes this substring. So let's say A here. I'm going to console.log and I'm going to get true. So let me just clear the whole thing here, run it again. I'm going to get true. It doesn't give me any information about the index, but it tells me that the string contains the letter A. If I were to pass AS here, then this is going to return false, right? So this is a somewhat safer way to check whether a string contains a certain substring or not. Like the starts with operator, I can also pass a starting index. So let's say I start with 10 here, and is there any, yeah, well, this is not present in the string if I start from index 10. So I'll save this, let's run, and then I get false, of course. But if I don't pass any index here, then I'm gonna get true, right? So we can also define a starting point for our string, where to look for the substring. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that, oops, sorry. I think that there is such a thing as console.log sample str last index of, right? So last index of is going to give you not the first match, or the index not for the first match, but for the last match. So if I pass here A again, you will see that before it was 8. So I can just, let's just compare it here. Console.log index of and then last index of. I'm gonna save this, run in the console, and you see that they are different, right? So first one is at index 8 and the second one is at index 36, which is correct, I suppose. I'm not gonna take the time to count this, but just so you know that it exists. So I'm just gonna list this here, last index of. That's it for the finding substrings. We're going to talk a little bit more about matching when we talk about matching with regular expressions, but these are the methods that can be quite useful when we are looking for substrings, at least the vanilla string, not a regular expression. These methods can be quite helpful. Let's now move on to extracting substrings. So new file again, new file, extracting.js. We'll talk about two methods here. We're going to talk about slice and we're going to talk about the split method. So let's see how they work. We're going to have again a, let's say, sample string. I'm going to copy this and paste it here. And the slice method, it actually works by, so let's say substring, right? So sub str, we're going to say sample str.slice. And then we can pass either no parameters, so 0 parameters, 1 parameter, or 2 parameters. If we pass no parameters, the substring is going to be a copy of the string, right? So these, both the slice and the split methods, they do not modify the original string. They actually return something new. In terms of the slice, it returns a copy of the original string, but cut according to the parameters that we can pass here. So if we don't pass any, we're gonna just start at index 0 and go until the end of the string. If we pass the first parameter, we're gonna start at some different position than 0, right? So let's now do a few console log, and then maybe we don't need to do the substring here. It will be easier if we just write the whole thing here. We don't need the intermediate variables. So let's save this. This is going to start at index 4, and index 4 is this space here. So saving this, let's clear the console from before, and we'll say node extracting.js, and then we'll see there is a white space here is a sample string for demonstration purposes. Now I can also pass a negative index, which means this is going to start from the end of the string. It's going to walk 4 indexes or 4 positions towards the beginning, and then it's going to start at that position, right? So the -4 here, it's actually equivalent. So this is equivalent to saying a sample str.length -4. Okay, if we pass a negative number, this actually is the same as, or behind the scenes, it's going to be subtracted from the length of the string. If I save this and then I run, we'll see that we end up with OSES in the end. So this is because we start here and then we go until the end of the string, right? So 4 indexes. One interesting, or one thing to keep in mind is that if we pass another parameter, we will actually define the end of the string. So this is going to be, as highlighted here, the end index that we're going to stop cutting this copy of the sample string. So if we pass like 410, for example, we're going to start at index 4. Maybe let's pass 5 here to start directly with the letter I. We're going to start at the letter I, which is index 5, and then we will go until 10 minus 1. So the start index is inclusive, meaning it will be included in the result, but the end index is exclusive. So it's not going to be included in the final result. Now remember, 10 I think is letter S. So let's save this and let's run in the console. And exactly we have is A here. If I were to add a few more, let's say let's add 5 more here to come to this space. I think it should actually be 6. Let's see. I don't yeah, exactly. So we have sample here, and for 15 I think we are gonna end with the sample without the E in the end, right? So you can see that the final index is not inclusive. And to make it even easier to see, let's say 0 and then index 3 here, and we know that we have 0, 1, 2, 3. So this the letter S here should not be included in the end. We just have THI. If I save this, we have THI. Okay, so that is the slice method. Now we have the split method, and the split method is a little bit trickier because we can actually, or not trickier, but just a little bit more complex in terms of logic, because we can specify a few things here. So we can specify a separator, and this separator can be either a string or a regular expression. So if I say is, for example, is my separator, if I save and print this on the screen, then you will see that we have a bunch of elements here. We have th, and then we have the is here is a separator. Then we have an empty character here. Then we have then again a simple string for demonstration purposes, right? So the is here was one separator, and this is was another separator. So in the end we have th, then this is deleted, then we have this is deleted as well, and then we have the first element of the array is th, then the second element is this white space, and then the third element starts with the white space and then goes until the end of the string, right? So this is how the split works. It takes the string, makes a copy of it, of course, because if I were to console.log the sample string here again, this would be exactly the same as before, right? So this the original string is not modified. Now here I can actually pass, let's say, something else string, right? And this is just going to split into 2. It's going to come until the end of sample plus the white space, and then start with the white space and go until the end of the string. If I save this and run, then you see that we have 2 substrings here. I can also pass a regular expression here. So let's say instead of passing the string, I can pass is. for example, and if I save this and run the file, then you will see that it works just as before. Now, there is one interesting thing about regular expressions, and it is that if I have a capturing group, which is represented by this brackets here, then the characters of the capturing group will also be added to the result of this split operation. So you see that we have s here and we also have s here, right? And so this added a few more characters to our result. I'm not going to enter into the details of what a capturing group is or how to actually work with regex to a good extent, but I think that it's good to know that we can perform some additional logic if we have regular expressions instead of vanilla strings when passing the parameter to the split method. Extracting substrings complete. Let's talk about combining strings. So I'm gonna create a new file here. New, if it works, when it works. Okay, now it's back. Yes. New file combining.js. And there are a few ways that we can combine strings. So I'm just going to get a simple string here that's going to be simple str. And this is going to be equal to ABC. Now let's do a few console.logs. And the first one is to use the method that we already know, the concat1, and then here def. That's just going to output abcdef, right? So back at the terminal. Here, let's run node combining.js. We have abcdef. Another method that we can do or that we can use is simple str.pad_start, right? And the pad_start takes two arguments. The first one is a desired length. So let's say we want to have a length of 6. And the second one is a character that we can use to fill the string at the beginning until this desired length is reached. So let's say we fill with this character here. I don't remember the name, but let's save it like this. And if I run the code, then I get the result here, the padded result. So maybe I can actually pass the star here so that we can see it a little bit better. I don't need to be thinking about the name of the character every time I speak about it. Another one that we can do is pad end, and the only difference to pad start is that pad end is going to add this character at the end of the string, right? So if I run this, you'll see that it's at the end of the string. Now, if the desired length, if the desired length is already equal to or greater than or smaller than the length of the string, so if I have A, B, C, D, E, F, G, for example, and here I am going to have a pad end of 6. This means that I already have a length of 7 here, so there is no space for this character. So if I save this and run this, this is just going to return the original string, the original unmodified string. So that's these are a few methods that we can use to combine strings. There is also another one, which is the repeat method. And then here I can simply say a number of times that I want to repeat this string. So if I want to repeat it 10 times, let's print this in the console. And then you see that it's going to repeat the string 10 times. I'm not going to count it. I'm not going to count this, but if you want to, feel free to do so. These are the methods for combining strings, and now let's talk a little bit about transforming strings. So again, new file here, transforming.js. I'll again make a list here so that you know which ones we're going to talk. So replace, we can also have to uppercase, we can have to lowercase, we can also have the trim start, we can have trim end, and we can have trim. There are a few other ones, but these ones are the ones I think makes more sense for us to talk about. So let's take again this sample string here, and we will work with it from now on. The replace method, let's console.log here, sample str.replace. And you can see here a replace all, right? This is a very recent function, replace all. You may find in some places they are mentioning it, but it is not compatible with several versions of Node. So if I were to actually, I don't remember if it is compatible with my version. Let's see here. I'm gonna try to replace A with B. Let's see if this is gonna run. I'm gonna clear the whole thing, and then we're gonna have node transforming.js. And as you can see, the replace all is not a function. So it's very new. It comes with ES 2021, and that's why it's not really compatible with many of the versions, many of the Node versions that are running out there. That's why we're not going to talk about it, at least not now. We're going to talk about just the replace, right? So replace version, and you'll see that it's virtually the same. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to replace the letter A with the letter B. Now, if I save this and I run, and then you will see that, well, oops, we actually still have a couple of A's, right? So we have an A here, and we also have an A here. And as it happens, the replace function replaces only the first occurrence of this string or of this substring by the replace value here. Now there is a workaround, or there is a way to go around this, and it is to define a global or a regular expression and mark it with the flag global. This will replace all the A's in this sample string by the replace value. So if I save this and I run it again, then you will see that all A's are now transformed into B's, right? So this is a neat way of replacing a character or a certain group of characters. I could also say, please replace the whole is thing by something more extensive, right? And if I were to save this and run here, then we will get something like this, right? It's no problem. We can use a regular expression and mark it as global by passing this letter G here in the end. And this will replace all occurrences of this string here, or at least all occurrences of matches from the regular expression. This was the more complicated one. The other ones I think are quite straightforward. So if I console the sample str.to uppercase, this is going to just output everything in uppercase, right? So let's have a couple of sample like this, and then 4. So if I save this now and I run the to uppercase, then it's going to output everything in uppercase. If I run the lowercase, let's run it here, to lowercase, then this is going to output everything in lowercase. And we can also have the trim start, trim end, and trim, right? So if I have some white spaces at the beginning and at the end here, then this is going to be, the trim start is going to remove these white spaces, the trim end is going to remove these white spaces, and the trim is going to remove both of them. So for the sake of them, so for demonstration purposes, let's get rid of this string, and because I want to count a little bit the length, since we cannot really see the spaces in the output of the console. So now here, let's write trim end, for example, and then we are going to, let's add one character here that's going to be a tab, right? So we are going to say console.log sample string, and here we should actually see the string with a tab in the beginning, exactly perfect. So now let's start exploring the trims. So if I were to trim end and then print the length, I should actually get 4, right? Because I get one character here, this tab, it counts as one character, and I have 2, 3, 4. So if I save this and I run this, I get 4, exactly. Clearing this. Then if I run the trim start, I should get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 characters. If I save this and I run it again, then I get 7, perfect. And if I run trim and I save this, I should get just 3. Right, so these are a few methods that we can use to transform strings, and this is the last thing I wanted to discuss in this part. In the upcoming part, we're going to talk about how to work with the match method. So we have something like this, match, right, and this expects a regular expression. Let's see how we work with this and how JavaScript handles the regular expression behind the scenes. We'll discuss this in the next part. That's it for the second video. I know a lot of methods, and of course you don't need to remember all of them immediately, but it's good to know that they exist and that you can use them whenever necessary. In the next video, we're going to talk about the match and the search methods, which actually receive regular expressions as their arguments. And because it's a little bit more complex, I decided to make an entire video for that. So if you don't want to miss that, make sure to subscribe to the channel and you will get a notification when the video is out. Thanks for your time, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.